Okay, welcome back. I hope you managed to get a cup of tea or coffee. Next up, we've got Karla Geci, who's Head of Strategic Media Partnerships at Facebook. And she partners with publishers, media organizations, and content owners to integrate with the first Facebook journalism project. Prior to Facebook, Karla was marketing director at Bebo. Do you remember them? That takes you back. Yeah. Driving strategic marketing partnerships with media owners. And today, Karla will discuss how quality content can unlock engagement and monetization on Facebook. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm sure it's not going to work, but is there any chance anyone on that side would move over a little bit? I don't know. I'm right-handed. I'm going to veer to the right a bit. Don't want to ignore you. You're welcome to stay there. I have a wonderful smile, though, so if you want to see it up close, come over here. We'll dive right in. So a very snappy title for this session, but really what I'm here to talk about is how quality content on Facebook, you all are content creators, you're publishers, how that leads to engagement, growth, and hopefully revenue for all of you. And as I was kindly introduced, I'm Karla Geci, I'm based here in London. Today is my 7-year anniversary at Facebook, by the way. We call it a Faceversary, which is incredible, how far we've come. I mean, how many of you recognize this image? Anybody? No? This is Facebook 2004, so 13 years ago, right? When you searched for people at your school, you found out who was in your classes, you looked up friends of friends, but there were no photos, not even a profile picture, no videos, no news articles, nobody even outside of your university. Today, things look pretty different than they did in 2004.
I think this is your first time doing one of these live streams.
Yes. Hey, all my friends on Facebook. I wanted to give you kind of a behind-the-scenes tour.
Here we are already in Des Moines, Iowa, getting ready for the caucuses tonight. What did you say?
We are live on Facebook from the gardens of Buckingham Palace.
Good morning from Milton Keynes. A very sunny day, and we are going to do something quite exciting for you this morning.
I'm in Saint-Denis, France, the scene of this morning's terror raid.
The United States are standing alongside France.
Les méchants, c'est pas très gentil, les méchants.
I'm currently at Place de la Bourse in Brussels. There is Brussels, my beauty, you live always.
This is a Sky News live.
Dicen que Mauricio Macri es el próximo presidente argentino.
Proposte, suggerimenti e che ci seguono sia su Facebook.
I assigned the Every Student Succeeds Act. This is the follow-up on No Child Left Behind.
So I'll see you tonight on Facebook Live.
So this is the Facebook we know today. Still very much a place where you connect with your friends, but very, very much about content, right? But the amount of content that gets published to Facebook has increased significantly over the years, but our time to consume it has remained static. So to tackle this, Newsfeed ranks every story with a score, right, of how likely you are to find it interesting or meaningful. And that's why the same story will rank differently for each of the 2 billion people on Facebook. So to give you a sense of kind of the magnitude of content flowing through Newsfeed, and I hope you don't mind, I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes going deep on Newsfeed first, because that's the homepage on Facebook, right? That is where people spend the vast majority of their time on desktop and even more of their time on mobile. So it's really, really important to understand how Newsfeed functions in order to create content that's compelling and reaches your audiences. All right, so to get a sense of the kind of magnitude of content that flows through Newsfeed, how many links do you think are shared in any given week? 10 million, 100 million, 200 million, you know the number is going to be big, right? It's actually close to 500 million links shared weekly. And that's just links. We're not even talking about photos or videos. So it's a lot of content is the point. And newsfeed, as I was saying, can be one of the most mysterious and mythologized parts of Facebook for publishers and for others as well. So I wanted to talk a bit about a scary word, an algorithm, and how newsfeed works. I'm sure you all know how algorithms work, and if you do, let's talk about it after the break. But what is an algorithm? Simply put, it's just a formula or a set of steps for solving a particular problem, right? That's a little bit abstract. So I have a little example that's kind of more everyday that we can walk through. So let's say I'm waiting for a friend at a restaurant. We're meeting for lunch. She sent me a text. She's running late. She wants me to order for her. At that point, I have a problem, a simple problem, but yet a problem to solve. I have to figure out what to order for my friend. Okay? So what I do is I break down that decision-making process into steps. The first is to see what's on the menu. I can only order things that are available. The second is to consider all of the information I have to make an informed decision. What time of the day is it? What season of the year is it, in fact? Then I make some predictions. Would she be more interested in a salad, pasta, maybe fish? I have to make a prediction. And then finally, I make an informed decision and I place an order. In ranking, we have names for these steps. They're called inventory, what's on the menu, signals, right, the considerations that we need to make, and then finally, a score, once we've made predictions. So this is how kind of newsfeed works, right? We think about it in the exact same way. We look at what stories have been posted by your friends and publishers. That's the inventory. That's what we have available, right? The content that's coming from the connections you already have on Facebook, your friends and other publishers. We looked at who posted this story, what time of the day the story was posted. We look at hundreds of thousands of signals, even small signals in terms of what's your internet connection at the moment, what kind of device are you on. All of those things are signals that we look at. And then we make our predictions, right? How likely are you to engage with this story, to comment, to react, to share it? And then ultimately, we come up with what we call a relevancy score. And the most important information and most important input into what you see is who you decide to friend and the pages you decide to follow. Those reflect the stories that are eligible to show up in the first place, right? Because people are always asking me, how does newsfeed decide what I see? But it all starts with the connections that you've made to people and to things, to pages. So to help guide our work, we developed a set of kind of core values years ago, right? This helps us keep the experience central. So yes, while the algorithm is changing and evolving as it does, these core principles remain the same. Friends and family come first. That's been foundational to Facebook way back since 2004, and that's what people tell us they want primarily. But they also say that newsfeed should be informative and should be entertaining. So in terms of what's informing and entertaining people en masse right now, it's video, right? We think that right now, we are in the midst of a major transformation. We believe that the shift to video is as big, if not bigger, than the shift from desktop to mobile. Today, video accounts for more than 50% of all mobile data traffic. And in 5 years, that's going to look like 75%. In fact, did you know, I mean, I'm sure a lot of us in the room, we make phone calls using voice over IP, right? And that's still a small fraction of calling that gets made, but half of all VoIP calls are video. Why? Well, because people naturally connect with one another through video. It's unsurprising when you think about it that way. And as technology keeps improving, the expectations on Facebook to provide richer video experiences increase as well. So as I said, watching video on Facebook has the power to connect people, to spark conversation, to foster communities. And videos are discovered through friends, and they're bringing communities together that way. And in fact, more than 40% of all video watch time on Facebook comes from shares. If you only remember one thing from this presentation, it's this number, because this is fundamentally how video is different on our platform from others. 40% of all views are the result of someone sharing that video. This goes back to my very first slide about quality content driving engagement, which ultimately, hopefully, drives revenue for you. So if the content that you put on Facebook isn't shareable, you're already starting on the back foot. It's a really different way of thinking about content creation, right? That's why I spent that time on Newsfeed, to help you understand how an algorithm thinks about what to put in front of somebody when the choices are endless. So consumption of video has been evolving, certainly, we know that, right? Went from kind of lean back, sessions in front of the TV, to increasingly kind of smaller bites throughout the day on mobile devices, right? And of course, with improved connectivity and access to longer form content, video mobile consumption can now also be a planned viewing experience in a lean back environment. That's really interesting, right? Because in Newsfeed, it's not a planned viewing experience. You open Newsfeed and it's spontaneous discovery, right? You didn't know what you were looking for. You just start scrolling through, you find something that engages you and you click to watch it. But that is really starting to change as longer form content becomes more available, right? You probably heard that Facebook launched Watch, right? Still just in the US, but that's very much playing in this area for a planned viewing experience. So Newsfeed is about dynamic and spontaneous discovery, which is great, right? Because that's how people find new shows and new content, the kind of stuff they didn't even know they wanted. They didn't know to search for it. That's kind of the power of Newsfeed. But what about the experience where we want to watch something in particular, we want a planned viewing experience? How many of you save content in Newsfeed today? Do you ever do that? In the top right-hand corner, you click to save. I just look at my own personal behavior and how much that's changed. I'm saving more and more pieces of content that I can watch later. The funny thing is I'm still watching it on the mobile, right? But I'm watching it in an environment where I have more time, etc. So this is all kind of playing into that. Over 100 million hours of video are actually watched on Facebook every day. And to put that into perspective, that's more video than any one of us could watch in 11,000 years. It's kind of crazy. So this is all just to drive home the point that a video-first strategy is incredibly important to success on Facebook. So people have a few different places that they can discover and watch your content on Facebook. Hopefully that's great for you because it helps you reach your existing audiences and new audiences. But we certainly know that video content requires a significant investment, right? And that all this video discovery and consumption needs to drive results for your business. Everybody in this room has kind of different content and business models. There's not a kind of one-size-fits-all. So we started testing something called ad breaks, right? Just earlier this year in February. We've been testing it in video on demand and also a little bit in live. How many of you have seen an ad break on Facebook? Some of you. It's still very new. I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about kind of branded content and ad breaks. And I think because we're somewhat short on time, I won't talk about Audience Network, but if you have questions about it, see me afterwards. Happy to point you in the right direction. So, branded content, very broad category. It includes things like product placements, influencer endorsements, deep integrations. This is one of the fastest growing categories in advertising. How many of you in the room have an element of your business model which includes branded content or sponsored content? A lot of you. 2 weeks ago, I was in Dublin. I was sitting with 50 kind of digital-first publishers from all across Europe, and pretty much all of their hands went up. That's how they're building their businesses, right? Branded content, sponsored content, whatever you want to call it. Well, what we did on Facebook is we simply kind of updated our content policies and rolled out tools. That's what we do. We're a technology company, we're a platform. We rolled out tools to support branded content on Facebook. And since then, we've seen very steady growth and adoption of the product, what we call a product. It's a branded content tag, right? You can see in this example, now this has tagged Kleenex, right? They're their sponsor, so you see a with Kleenex. That's the branded content tag that we added. And we made it available for verified pages and profiles. But now we've opened it up to pages of all sizes. So even if you have a page on Facebook that isn't verified, you can still use the branded content tag. If you have questions about that, ask me afterwards. We take a lot of your feedback in. I spend a lot of my time, my job is spending time one-on-one with all of you to understand what works about the products we're building and what doesn't work, right? And so we updated our policy to allow logos and watermarks and overlays that can persist through a video, because that's what you told us was important to you. And we've also added the word paid to branded content posts. We think about a three-sided marketplace every day at Facebook. We think about the experience for people, we think about the experience for advertisers, we think about the experience for all of you as publishers. And it was really important that people on Facebook understand when a piece of content in News Feed is in any way paid for, and that's why we added the paid element. This is just an example I really like. This is from Time Out in London. It's a 360 video, as you can see, of a bit of a punt down the River Cam. And they did this in partnership with Great Northern Rail. And they generated over 700,000 views. They had 5,500 reactions. Great example of how branded content can be quality content in Facebook and earn revenue, in this case for Time Out. So ad breaks in video, right? So some of you raised your hand, but a lot of you didn't. So what ad breaks is viewers see a very short video ad. It has to be less than 15 seconds. 15 seconds or less is what we're testing, right? So if you're an advertiser in the room, your 15-second video creatives are eligible for ad breaks. The videos have to be longer than 90 seconds, right? And publishers earn a share of the revenue. You can monetize across all Facebook surfaces, and publishers have the control in the sense that they decide if an ad break goes into the video and where it goes. We put some criteria around that in terms of when you can insert the ad break, not at the very beginning, not at the very end. But apart from that, publisher decides where the ad goes. You know, we began testing this, like I said, earlier in the year. And I feel like I might get questions about this expanding widely. And I just wanted to share with you that, of course, at Facebook, I mentioned this kind of three-sided marketplace. For us, it has to be a really measured process, right? It requires a lot of localization in product. You know, Facebook is a global company. Brand safety, top of mind, and a healthy ads demand, right? Things are really starting to shift in terms of ad creatives getting shorter. Lots of platforms are pushing for this, right? But it's still challenging for a lot of advertisers because we're used to the 30-second ad. So there's a lot of things that have to happen and be put in place before this can become something a bit more mainstream. Yeah? And of course, the main focus for us is the experience for people. Engagement has to be a priority in News Feed, because if engagement is impacted, then all of you are impacted as well. So that's always where kind of we are top of mind. Here's just an example of it, of the ad break. We'll see. So you can't insert it in the first 20 seconds. We kind of give a heads up that the ad's coming. We do a bit of a countdown. You might have seen this look kind of different in different guises as we test it. We know the content's coming back shortly. And you can learn more about this magical chocolate geode. Anyway, so I mentioned brand safety, right? Bit of a kind of non-sexy slide, but really important, I think, for all of you in the room, whether you're an advertiser or a publisher or both, right? There's 3 key ways that we help ensure brand safety across our platforms and placements. And at the very top of the pyramid is our community standard, right? This has been in place for years. They dictate what's allowed on the platform across the board. They apply to people, they apply to advertisers, they apply to publishers. And in the middle is monetization eligibility standards. This is brand new. This we just launched a matter of weeks ago. We launched it in September, right? And the idea was to set clearer guidance around the types of publishers and creators who are eligible to earn money on Facebook, right? And the kind of content that can be monetized. And these apply to our placements that generate revenue for publishers. So that's in-stream video, which is ad breaks, things like instant articles and audience network. And on the bottom of the pyramid is brand safety controls. And we put these in place to give advertisers confidence and control over where their ads appear. And just one more slide on that, right? This is how we think about kind of brand safety. First of all, as I said with ad breaks, it's completely opt-in, right? So if you're an advertiser and you're coming to newsfeed, you can choose in-stream video, which is simply ad breaks, as a placement, or completely opt out of it. We allow category blocking, right? So if you don't want mature content, tragedy and conflict, think about news publishers and breaking news situations where it's often, tragedy has struck. That can be blocked as a category. Debatable social issues, and the list goes on. Pre-campaign publisher list. This is Facebook providing full transparency as to the publishers on Facebook that are using ad breaks. So while you can't target content, right, because on Facebook you target people. You're looking for a woman of a certain age in a certain location. That's who you're targeting. But you can see who the list of publishers are in the program, and you can block up to a certain percentage of those, right? So if there's certain publishers you don't want your content to appear next to, you can do that. And similarly, you can use domain and app block listing for things like in-stream video with audience network. So just a couple of early learnings from this very small test that we've been doing with ad breaks, right? The best performing videos are programmed to accommodate ad breaks, right? So if it's a great video with the concept of a cliffhanger, right? And people in the room that come with a TV background, this is totally your sweet spot, right? Because understanding cliffhangers, understanding how to get people back after ad, those are the people that are having the most success with ad breaks, right? There's no particularly best time to insert an ad. It really depends on the narrative arc of the video, right? And iteration based on looking at insights is important. So what we're allowing in the test is the ability to shift the ad break, right? So if you're watching and you see people are dropping off, you can go back into your page management and kind of move that ad break. It's just really important to stress here because, again, I started with an overview of newsfeed and the idea that newsfeed is spontaneous discovery, right? So people don't go to newsfeed knowing that they're looking for something specific. And that's why we couldn't put pre-rolls on video content. Imagine your experience in newsfeed if you were scrolling through ad after ad after ad. You'd never make it to the content. And so this is a really different way of thinking again about longer form content on Facebook and why we're really invested in making this work, because it's a better fit, frankly, for the experience in newsfeed. Just a couple of key takeaways. Consider the newsfeed environment as I just described in great detail. This shift to video being a major transformation. Engagement drives discovery. I know a lot of your teams probably look at views, they look at reach, but the real statistic you should care about is engagement. If you have high engagement, if you have a high engagement ratio on your page, that'll drive distribution because I just explained how the algorithm works, right? And that's an important signal that we look at. Longer videos, seeing great engagement, right? So it was a bit of a myth that only short form content works on Facebook, right? Longer form content's growing very fast. And then creating content with ad breaks in mind. Thank you.
Thanks, Karla. I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions. Somewhere in the room, is a green block which has got a microphone on it. Has somebody got it? Brilliant, great. So whoever's wants to ask the first question, if we could throw the block to them. If you want to put your hand up, there must be a question. Right, there's one here. So if you chuck in the block, and you have to hold it quite close to your mouth and speak into the black bit. Got it.
I love this block.
Engagement question. So in terms of the ad breaks, are you seeing increases in engagement for less time for ads? So like a 6-second ad versus a 10-second ad versus a 15-second ad? Because I think that obviously is a big shift in the industry as a whole to try and move people to shorter ad breaks.
Yep.
So I'm just wondering if you have any feedback on that.
It's a good question, and actually, no, we're not seeing. It's so dependent on the quality of the content and that cliffhanger. I mean, we're not testing ads longer than 15 seconds, so we are doing some 6 seconds, but that seems to be less of the indicator of a view-through versus the quality of the content. So people are, frankly, are willing to sit through a 6-second ad or a 15-second ad if they want to get to the other side. We're seeing a lot of good examples of like Tasty and these kind of, food-oriented videos where you got to see the souffle come out of the oven, right? But it's just kind of simple cliffhanger stuff that people in TV have understood for a long time, but on social is somewhat of a new concept.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Someone in the back.
Sorry, there's one over here. So if you could just chuck it away. Thank you.
Everybody duck.
Great, brilliant.
Hold
it up.
I missed right at the start, so maybe you covered this off then. What does engagement look like? I mean, what is good engagement? So as a percentage,
I don't know if it's that much of an exact science, but the way we define engagement on a post on Facebook, right, is whether people are sharing it, whether they're commenting on it, whether they're reacting to it. Also links, if they click on a link and actually stay on your website and read the story for a long time, that's a really good signal to us. It's a sign that they saw something in a feed that was interesting, the title was accurately representative of what the content was, and they stayed and engaged with that. So that time spent we also measure. All of those things go into the score, frankly. That's what I was talking about at the beginning, the score that Newsfeed gives to every piece of content. So there's no kind of perfect formula per se, but there are things that are higher signal and lower signal. To like something is pretty low signal, right? But to leave a comment or to share it to your network of friends is a really, really high signal. Just something that tells the Newsfeed algorithm, gosh, this was really important to Karla. Maybe we should show it to more people. So that's the answer to that.
Okay, any more questions?
Somebody right there.
Yeah, there's one there. Right.
Thank you. Glad I didn't have to catch that. So I work for a company called Watch It. We're a video creation platform, and we're used by about 500 publishers around the world. And we look at how their videos are performing on Facebook that they make with our platform. And we've noticed that there's been, on average per video, a decrease in the number of likes, an increase in the number of reactions, and a huge spike in the number of shares. And it's really confusing to me because that seems like an organic action that somebody takes to a video. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts about why shares tend to be moving up across our network, and I've talked to other publishers as well, and they're seeing this too.
I hope it's just because people are getting better at creating shareable content, because this is across the board, right? You're not seeing this in a particular genre.
This is globally 30,000 videos a month, yeah.
I don't know, because nobody can make a person share a video. Possibly it's a combination of, again, us spending more and more of our time here, knowing that our bandwidth is just faster to do everything than it was just a few short years ago, and the kind of things that were blockers to engaging with content on the mobile, I think, are just slowly going away. That's just my, that's just my hypothesis. I don't really know the answer to that specifically. But I also think as well, people in the room and elsewhere are just really getting better at creating content design for social platforms, which is different than the kind of content they used to create for television.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I think we're out of time, so thank you very much, Karla. Really fascinating. Are you going to be around for a short while?
Certainly.
So if you'll want to grab you later today, then
I'll be
they
right
can ask
outside
questions.
if anyone
That'd
had a
be
question.
fantastic. So thank you very much.